Hello everyone! Finally I got to edit this KuguInuShiba piece. Just for your image. This is the last thing I wrote at work. And I voiced it like a month ago. That's how lazy I am with editing. Anyway, fun stuff, we are going hiking. If you've been on this channel for long enough, you know what that means. Let's go! As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch these videos. You are keeping this channel alive and going. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy. Whose genius idea was it to go hiking today? Inuka chuckled sheepishly, shaking the rainwater from his jacket's hood in the process. He didn't turn around, definitely knowing he would have to face Shibayama's wrath, which was probably the only sensible thing he did that day. Annoyed to the limit, Shibayama shook his arms to get the water off of his jacket and sputtered when the raindrops flew into his face. At least Inuka had the decency to look guilty. I'm sorry, I just wanted us to come to different thoughts. I had no idea it was going to rain. It was supposed to be sunny, I swear. They did say to expect sudden weather changes. Can you wait for me, please? Shibayama stopped, waiting for Kukuri to catch up with them. The poor guy looked the worst out of the three of them, since his jacket wasn't made to withstand heavy rains and was already soaked through, giving him a look of a wet cat. Yet he still pushed forward despite the occasional shiver running through his body, and Shibayama wasn't sure whether to be impressed or worried. One of them catching pneumonia because someone decided it was a great idea to go hiking over the weekend was not the thing he wanted from their vacation. Speaking of, he threw another scorching glare at Inuka. See, even now I paid more attention to your plans than you. I'll personally deck you if you get sick. You can't reach that high. Oh, now you want to bring up my height? Really? Inuka flinched and backed a step away, raising his hands in defense. I'm sorry, it was a reflex. You're spending too much time with Fluff, it seems. Maybe you need Yaku-san's treatment too. Please don't argue. Shibayama's heart ached hearing the badly hidden broken undertone in Kukuri's voice. He reached for Kukuri's hand and gave it a gentle squeeze, taking note of how cold his skin was. Sorry, I'll make sure to scold him after we get home. Oh, come on, I apologized already. You can apologize by getting us somewhere dry and warm. Now's freezing. It's not that bad. It is. Your lips are turning blue. It wasn't entirely true, but as far as he was concerned, his boyfriend needed to get out of the wet clothing. And fast. A little lie never hurt anyone. He should be close to the chalet. Should be just on the top of his hill. Shibayama rolled his eyes, his breath hitching when he slipped on a wet route. Great, so about 2 kilometers through a wet forest and uphill. Any other great news? I mean, at least it's not storming. That was the bare minimum, but out of consideration for Kuguri, Shibayama stayed silent and instead focused on not falling on his face. The ground was more just mud and wet leaves than a path, the pouring water and wet roots and rocks making it a treacherous scaling. Perhaps their biggest worry should be injury rather than sickness. Slowly, they made their way up the hill, following the barely visible path, careful on their feet and occasional root just waiting for them to stumble over it. Shibayama tried not to grumble too much despite really wanting to, knowing he wouldn't help anything. He could be grumpy when they reached their destination. However, the pouring rain and crawling mist made the resolution somewhat difficult. Soon, he could barely hear anything other than the raindrops drumming into his hood and the leaves above them, and see more than 5 meters ahead. So, slow down, you'll get lost. Inoka stopped, pointing somewhere ahead before turning to him. I'm pretty sure we should cross a road soon, and then it's only like 10 minutes walk. Hallelujah. But don't run off ahead, you'll be the first to fall somewhere. Inoka gasped in obvious offense, but then his eyes looked on something behind Shibama's shoulder. Everything okay? With a startle, Shibama turned around too, breathing a sigh of relief when he spotted Kugure slowly making his way towards them. However, the relief soon disappeared when he noticed how wobbly his walk was and how much his chest was heaving. Now? Kugure shook his head, his face visibly scrunched with pain. I'm fine. No, you aren't. What's wrong? I'm just tired, I swear. It will get better when we get to sit down. Shibama wasn't convinced in the slightest, the pained smile Kugure gave him serving only to worry him more. But aside from his heavy breathing, there didn't seem to be anything physically wrong with him. Nor could he recall hearing Kugure stumble over something and fall. Then what is it? Alright, but call at us if you get too behind, okay? We'll wait for you. Sure. And while Shibama didn't like it in the slightest, getting somewhere dry was their best bet to deal with the situation. They carried on along the slippery slope, barely seeing anything through the mist. It didn't take long, and Inoka almost disappeared from Shibama's field of view, staying only as a vague red blob in the midst of grey. So, slow down! You'll fall somewhere with your luck and... A startled yelp cut him off. He moved even before the red blob suddenly disappeared. He threw himself on the ground and desperately grappled for anything to stop Inoka's fall. His fingers scraped the fabric of the jacket and then closed firmly around Inoka's hand. Eyes wide with panic looked up at him, the sight sending his heartbeat crazy. Hold on, don't let go. Now, help! Ice-cold shivers ran down his spine when he spotted the drop under Inoka's feet as he dangled helplessly above the cliffside, unable to see the bottom. He scrambled into a squat and dug his heels into the wet soil, his shoes sliding on the mud as he strained his whole strength to try to pull Inoka back up. Let go! You'll fall too! No way in hell! No! The dull thumping of feet was cut short by a pained cry, but before he could pay that any mind, the ground crumbled under his feet. He only managed to yelp as the rocks and dirt caved in, taking him and Inoka along for the fall. Sharp pain exploded in his back almost immediately, the hit making him spin out of control as he continued to tumble down. More pain shot through his shoulder before he hit the ground one more time with a sickening crack. He cried out, the worst pain he had ever felt setting his whole chest on fire. For how long he lay still, unable to move, he wasn't sure. Even the tiniest breath hurt like all hell. Even moving his eyes to look around took more effort than playing a full match. And he had no idea where Inoka was. So... oh shit, no! Scared, he fell on his boyfriend as if returned some feeling into his body and forced him to move, only to get stopped by a hollow cough next to him. Ouch. That was pretty accurate description, and Shibama would gladly laugh in the adrenaline-induced delirium if his chest wasn't killing him right now. So? Yeah, you okay? Hurts a lot. A moment later, Inoka's face appeared in his vision, much to his relief. There were several new scratches on his cheeks and blood dripping down the side of his face from a cut on his temple, but otherwise he seemed all right. Thank goodness. What hurts? Can you move? Just didn't try it. Okay, stay calm. I'll get us out of here. He paused, hissing when he turned his head. Where's Nao? Shibama froze. The image that Kuguri fell with them and the fact that he was now silent, chilling to the marrow of his bones. Inoka seemed to think the same, his eyes widening with a similar panic as a minute or so ago. Nao? Can you hear me? Where are you? The echo and mist distorted his voice into an almost inhuman sound. And yet, just a second later, a weak but familiar voice came from above them. I'm still up here. Shibama could swear he never felt so relieved as in that very moment. Despite the pain, he cracked a small smile, glad that his boyfriends were alive and apparently without a serious injury. Are you hurt? I'll get help. Just wait a minute. Wait! Don't go on your own! You can fall too! But there was no answer, only rustling of leaves as the rain drummed into them. Chills ran through Shibama's body, if because of the cold seeping from the wet ground or worry, he wasn't sure. Perhaps both. With the utmost effort, he tapped around until he found Inoka's hand, squeezing it hard. Should we move? Inoka clenched his jaw, obviously torn on what to do. Rather not. You could have broken your spine or something of that nature. I don't think you should move at all, let alone look around for a way up. Shibama took a hitched breath, groaning in pain when the scorching flame flushed through his whole chest again. Might be ribs rather than spine. Breathing hurts. Well, that's the better option, right? Not so dangerous. Hopefully. Either way, don't move, okay? I'll check if we have service, but if not, I suppose we'll have to pray now finds a way to that chalet. He left the without falling down some cliff too unsaid, but Shibama wasn't stupid to not hear it. To not know in how much danger their boyfriend could be now. He squeezed his eyes shut, sending a silent prayer to the gods to help Kuguri get safely to the chalet and hopefully call someone to pick them up too. Either way, it was going to be a long wait. The raindrops didn't stop falling even for a second as they waited for the sounds meaning rescue, slowly soaking through even the outdoor jacket they had, the damp clothes stealing even the remaining bits of body warmth from Shibama. Help me sit up. Inoka blinked a few times as if he couldn't comprehend the words at first, his eyes strangely unfocused for a second or two before clearing up again. Are you sure? You could make it worse if there's a fracture. He knew, but he would rather risk it than continue lying on the ice-cold ground. That's why I need your help. Alright, but move carefully, okay? Nodding, Shibama stopped himself from taking a deep breath and then hissed when Inoka's hands hooked under his shoulders to help him up. He gritted his teeth against the pain, trying not to move too much and keep his back straight, grateful for the supporting hands placed on his shoulder blades. A strained whine fell through his lips when he finally sat up straight, feeling as if he just got hit by a car. But the chill creeping into his muscles from the ground disappeared at last. The hands stayed on his back, supporting and returning some of the lost warmth into his skin. Does it hurt more? No, still the same. It's probably really just ribs. From the corner of his eye, he could see Inuoka nod before his face scrunched in pain. What's wrong? I don't know. My head spins a bit when I move. Shibama's mind immediately went to concussion, his stomach clenching. It wasn't impossible. If the fall was heavy enough to break, or at least crack his ribs, it was definitely enough to cause a concussion. He tapped around to gently squeeze Inuoka's knee. Do you feel sick? Or lightheaded? Not really. It just hurts when I nod or turn around. Probably because of the fall. You don't say. He bit his tongue to prevent himself from starting unnecessary squabbles. They had to work together now, not argue about stupid things. How long has it been since Snow left? The time felt as if slowed down in the mist. It could have been an hour or just 10 minutes since they last heard their boyfriend's voice. Neither of which was good news. He tried to tell himself they would hear it if Kuguri fell too, but deep down he knew that wouldn't be the case unless it was close. Kuguri could easily lay on the bottom of another cliffside, injured or worse, and they would have no idea. No, stop. He's fine. He was careful and got to the phone without an issue. He'll be back soon, for sure. It's been about 25 minutes. Could he get to the shot by now? I'd say so if he ran, which, knowing him, he definitely did, even in these conditions. Chills ran down Shibama's spine. The truth was, Inuoka was right. No matter the weather, mud or the roots, Kuguri would run the whole way up the hill just to get help to them. And while Shibama thought it was incredibly sweet of him, it also meant an increased risk of injury. He squeezed his eyes shut, desperately trying to chase away the dark scenarios. I hope he's okay. I'm sure he is. We would feel it if he wasn't, right? Shibama wasn't so sure about that, but at that point he was going to take anything. Then a weak echo of voices reached his ears through the mist, so faint he wasn't sure if he didn't just imagine it at first. But the longer he listened, the closer the voices seemed to get. Inuoka perked up too, even though with a noticeable delay, his eyes quickly scanning the barely visible line of the cliff. So? Yuki? Relief washed over Shibama as Kuguri's voice sounded above them. Still here. Yuki might have broken ribs though. Kuguri's voice disappeared again for a moment, before being replaced by a much deeper one. Alright, please stay calm. We'll lower the stretches for you now. The sight of the two paramedics scaling down the cliff together with the stretches was perhaps the sweetest one he knew, only rivaled by seeing Kuguri, visibly panicked but otherwise unharmed again the moment the stretches got lifted over the cliff edge. The way up the slippery path to the road where the emergency car was waiting, however, was the most painful experience he ever had. Every bump, every movement of the stretches went right into his chest, igniting the pain again with enough power to make him cry out several times. He wished he could hold at least one of his boyfriend's hands, but that would make the scaling unnecessarily more difficult than it already was. And so he gritted his teeth against the pain, only occasionally calling out to them to make sure they were still following behind. Everything all right? Something he could only call a mildly annoyed huff sounded from somewhere behind. You asked like 5 times already! Stunned by the unusually harsh tone of Inuoka's voice, Shibama furrowed his brow, and for a while he would give anything to be able to turn around. Well, sorry for caring about my partner's well-being. It's alright. Just a little further, then we will check both of you up properly. Another, now clearly annoyed grunt echoed around, but Shibama was sure he didn't imagine the pained undertone in it. At the very edge of his hearing, he heard Kuguru's soft voice saying something to Inoka before getting interrupted by a hiss and a startled "careful." Now? I'm fine, just stumbled. Shibama pressed his lips together, the year of experience of knowing Kuguri telling him it wasn't true. But before he could ask further, they finally exited the canopy of the trees and entered the road, heading straight to the ambulance standing a bit aside. Alright, we will take you both to a hospital nearby to have x-rays done. Try not to move too much, okay? What about So? He's coming too. I'm fine though. I don't need a hospital. So? You fell a considerable distance too. It's always better to make sure. That's stupid. I'm fine. Focus on him. Why aren't you taking care of him? He motioned wildly towards Shibama, obviously annoyed at the whole world. Then his face twisted with pain as he moved his head. Alarm bells sounded in Shibama's head, and judging by Kuguri's expression, he wasn't the only one weirded out by Inoka's sudden mood shift. So, they know what they are talking about. Maybe you should... Don't tell me what to do! I'm fine. I'm fine. The strange, absent look returned into his eyes as he silently repeated the words a few times, gripping his head in the process. And then he crumbled to the ground. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I have to apologize for this one a bit because I voiced it at the time where I just couldn't find the voices properly. I don't know why, it just was some time where I couldn't voice properly, but hopefully part 2 is going to be much better. That said, part 2 is going to come out probably on Wednesday, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, so I hope you are looking forward to part 2. That's going to be the last part, it's just 2-part series. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time.